Welcome to the Black Gems Dive In podcast, the podcast where we dive deep into conversations about inclusive cultures and everything DEI. Your co-hosts are Akua and Kendra, and we're thrilled to be your hosts as we explore the crucial topics shaping our workplaces and communities today. In each episode, we'll unpack insights, share stories, and engage with experts to foster a deeper understanding of how we can create more inclusive environments where everyone feels valued and empowered.
Hey, Kua.
Hey, Kendra.
We're back.
We're back for another episode, y'all.
Yes, so we are back here talking about all things that is happening in our world today. And it's just like so much information that we always want to bring to you guys. And we sit on these couches every week. We're like, what do we talk about?
Because it's always a lot to talk about and discover.
Yeah.
Every day it feels like there's something new, right? And we've just kind of looked at everything and said, all right, we got to bring something to the folks. So we're back. There's a lot to talk about. Before we do that, how have you been? The weather is,
it's breaking
a little bit.
I don't know what's happening with this weather because I left for the gym this morning. It was 23, 24 degrees. And then we come in here and my thing says 63. Literally 63 degrees. I'm like, how do I even dress for the day?
It's hard because like the other day, what is that, Sunday? I think Sunday was like 70 degrees and I didn't wear a coat, of course. And I'm like, oh, this feels good. Left that home show and it dropped to like 40.
40 something, yeah.
So it was ridiculous. But y'all know how Buffalo weather is. It's fake spring right now.
Yes.
It's like, they have like the false spring and then it's like, oh, it's spring, psych. No, it's not. Then it's like fake spring number 2. Then we finally warm up.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll figure it out. I was in Montgomery last week.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, so we can talk about that a little bit later in one of our episodes. But, really just taking a step back and really thinking about the experience I had at the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, which talked about from enslavement to mass incarceration in our country. Okay. So second time there, it was really just a phenomenal, I hate to say it in those terms, but a phenomenal experience in terms of getting back to like my ancestral roots. And understanding why I continue to do the work that I do today is not a coincidence that we do the work that we do. And so, I wrote a LinkedIn article about it today, went out. Just really looking at that overall experience, but we'd love to bring that to the pod
we should,
one
absolutely.
day. Just really digesting that as a whole.
Yeah, let's definitely talk about that. I think that would be good to dive into. And so let's dive on in.
Yes.
We're going to have we're calling it a succinct episode. We always say that and then we end up going, but we got a hard stop today.
Yes.
So our diversity dispatch is coming from Midas News. And the headline is Trump appoints man fearful of black pilots to Air Force Academy Advisory Board. The anti-MLK advocate, Charlie Kirk, is now officially part of the Trump administration. And so it says on Truth Social Monday, Trump announced the appointment of Charlie Kirk, a vocal critic of Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy, to an influential advisory board. Kirk has made publicly questioning MLK's contributions to American civil rights part of his legacy. And so Trump had tweeted, our great United States Air Force Academy will soon have an incredible board of visitors composed of Doug Nicolai, Dan Clark, Senator Tommy Tuberville, Charlie Kirk, and Dina Powell. Congrats to all. And so Kirk has attacked MLK and his legacy on several occasions, leading one of Trump's own advisors to call him an a-hole and a white supremacist. He has questioned MLK's character, calling him a bad quote-unquote bad guy, and casting doubt on his personal integrity. Kirk also criticized the Civil Rights Act, which banned segregation in the United States, claiming that its passage was a quote-unquote huge mistake, and that it led to the creation of a permanent DEI-type bureaucracy. Additionally, Kirk has opposed MLK Day, stating that MLK is not worthy of a national holiday and mocking what he described as a godlike status attributed to him. He has referred to the reverence surrounding MLK as a myth. In his rhetoric, Kirk opposed the celebration MLK as a civil rights hero and pulled all MLK merchandise from his Turning Point organization. Kirk has also suggested that attacking MLK will lead black people to the Maga movement. Despite expressing fear of black people being pilots, the board Trump appointed Kirk to is the United States Air Force Academy Board of Visitors, which plays a vital role in overseeing the operations of the academy. It's responsible for advising on the matters related to the academy's academic standards, morale, discipline, faculty, and fiscal affairs. So what say you, Kendra? What does this?
What say me? Okay, so there's so much to be said, but again, this is not anything that's a shock based off of everything that's been happening. I know, I have military family. My brother is a Air Force vet. My cousin and her husband graduated from the Air Force Academy out in Colorado. And they are proud Air Force women and men. So to hear this and the backing of his appointment is really heartbreaking for our country, because we know that there's a lot of just history behind the institution when it comes to the Tuskegee Airmen, when it comes to that lineage. And I know even earlier this year, Trump was talking about talking about the Tuskegee Airmen and their legacy within the Air Force, right? And so this only just backs some of the things that he wants to do within the Air Force. And so, again, not shocked. My question, I guess, would be back to folks who are involved in the Air Force. Like, how do you feel about this? How do you, the fact that he's a part of the advisory board, right? Yeah. And so he's, looking at rewriting history, obviously being a part of talking about MLK and anti-MLK supporter. It's kind of scary because these people are literally trying to rewrite history
and erase history, right? Which, is a big conversation that's happening as well. I just want to highlight another article that came from Politico. And the highlight there was that Trump stacks military academy boards with Maga loyalists, including Michael Flynn and Charlie Kirk. And so a lot of his close allies are now being put to oversee some of the nation's top military academies. And so I think it says the appointment came after Trump last month purged the boards of visitors at the Naval Academy, Army, Air Force, and Coast Guard academies as part of his wider push to radically overhaul the military, which he has previously decried as too woke, right? And so I think the other people on there, his former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, he's going to the U.S. Military Academy's Board of Visitors as well, along with Wesley Hunt, a Republican in Texas, Maureen Bannon, a West Point alum and daughter of MAGA firebrand Steve Bannon as well, and then the Medal of Honor recipient David Belavia and retired Major General Dan Walrath. And so we know that Michael Flynn, there's history behind, what happened there. He served under Trump's national security as an advisor during his first term before he resigned in 2017 after reports surfaced that he obfuscated his discussions with Russian officials to then Vice President Mike Pence. He pled guilty to making false statements to the FBI regarding his contacts with Russia's ambassador, though Trump later pardoned him. And so when you think about people to lead some of these, the boards, right? Like, you would think that there should be levels of integrity and honor.
Or checks and balances.
In place, right? But this is where we're at. And so I think you already started to talk about how this is impacting people. I also have friends and family who have served in the military and currently serves. And they just say that it's really difficult, right? It's difficult to see that. There's been a lot of conversations around recruitment in the military right now and the difficulty it is to even want to be a part of the military. There's very stringent things that you have to have in place. They talk about things like having your weight under control, because that's a big one, and how they go to these schools and they're seeing, like, Americans tend to be overweight. And so the difficulty to even meet the standards if you're even interested in the first place. A lot of people are saying, do I want to do that?
Right.
It's definitely a lifestyle, and it's something that you have to deal with on a regular basis if you go in that direction. But at this point in time, if you're erasing history and I'm not even allowed to celebrate the fact that we've had black pilots,
women pilots,
et cetera, then if I can't see myself represented, then why would I put myself in that place?
Exactly. And it also goes on to say that these advisory panels can weigh in on curriculum, teaching, finances, and other matters as well. And so, the question lies is, are we making ourselves vulnerable as a country? I hate to say United States, because right now I don't feel united. So I keep saying as a country. However, are we making ourselves vulnerable, right? Especially with our recruitment on the downslide, people not feeling always proud to represent our country. it's something to definitely look at for sure.
And they're already talking about the difficulty it is, like in the Navy specifically. I think they don't have enough people to even man some of the ships, right? Yeah. And so from your standpoint, you know, obviously, and I think there's another discussion too, because now there's drones and all types of other things that people are getting into as it relates to the military. But the reality is, the recruitment is low, and then on top of that, you're banning certain people like trans folks now from the military. So when there's somebody that's ready to serve their country, you're saying, nah, we don't want you. We want this.
Right.
You know, and so what does that look like over time?
Exactly.
I don't know.
I don't know.
More to come.
More to come. All right, y'all. So moving on to our next topic, which is our hot topic.
Yes.
And this comes from Forbes. And it says major tax changes targeting student loan borrowers could be devastating. Or sorry, tax changes, not targeting student loan borrowers could be devastating. As millions of student loan borrowers try to navigate a repayment system mirrored in unprecedented turmoil, a new threat looms on the horizon, potential changes to the federal tax treatment of student loan forgiveness and repayment. Collectively, these reforms may have significant and costly ramifications for many Americans who have student loan debt. Student loan borrowers are already facing a myriad of problems. The SAVE plan, a Biden-era income-driven repayment program that reduced payments for 8 million borrowers, remains stuck in limbo as a legal challenge continues and the plan appears increasingly likely to be struck down or repealed. Earlier this month, the Trump administration effectively shut down the entire income-driven repayment application system, imperiling access to programs that federal government is legally required to offer. And so last week, the U.S. Department of Education fired nearly half of its workforce, which observers warn may dramatically impact department operations and oversight of loan servicers. And just prior to that, President Donald Trump issued an executive order threatening to limit eligibility for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, or PSLF, which can benefit millions of nonprofit and government workers.
Insane. Absolutely insane. And so there's reports of folks' payments going from $500 to $5,000, which this is a monthly cost.
Monthly.
By the way, y'all. People are talking about, my payment was $250 under the SAVE plan, and now it's $900 a month. There's no way that I can afford this. People are saying that this is going to absolutely devastate the economy because you can, how do you live, how do you pay $5,000 a month in student loans and live and do the rest of the things that you normally do if you're not already wealthy, right?
And this is why Biden issued the plans that he did. You know, I know that, you know, you're a beneficiary of the plan of forgiveness. His forgiveness.
No, I was not.
You ain't not you.
That's Jamil.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's Jamil.
There.
Sorry, Jamil was behind the scene. I forgot you did.
Listen.
You did. Sorry, friend. Sorry, friend.
I was like, I wish I was.
Sorry, but I know a lot of friends who were. That's what I was like. Yes,
right.
But Jamil back here. You know, shout out to J. Cruz Pod Hub. But yeah, so you know, there were people whose loans were forgiven under the plan.
Yeah.
Which changed their lives significantly.
Right.
Able to own homes,
Exactly.
think about like family planning.
Yep.
Like it literally changed the lives of so many people. And then even with the income driven plan as well, which I know me specifically am under, or was under, I should say, from grad school loans. But for someone like me, I didn't have undergrad, I have grad. I graduated in 2019, so I couldn't even get loan forgiveness because I wasn't paying long enough.
Oh, okay.
So, but still, you know, it's now looming once again. The interest is now put back into those plans, and my payment has jumped.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm just like,
is it significant? Like,
it's a significant jump.
Yeah.
It's a huge. I mean, it's what it should be, quote unquote, but it's income driven, right? But even what it should be is still high. Like who can pay that?
Yeah.
You know, so I know, like, you know, what you were saying is that a lot of people are like, how can we now continue to live? You know, how can we have a viable life? Like, these are questions that many people are. I mean, I even ask myself, like, now what do I do? How do I adjust?
And then what is the ramifications if you cannot afford to pay that, right? Like, say you do have a family, say you do own a home, and you have all these monthly costs. What happens if you default then, right? Like, you know, like, is then your credit jacked up? Is that going to jack up other areas of your life?
So
right?
I know I received an email recently, and I would have brought it up if I could think about it, but there's an email that's going out from Department of Education, which is almost laughable because you're also dismantling Department of Education, but the email's coming out from Department of Education.
Yeah.
There's an email that I received last week that talked about what happens if you do default on your loans.
Oh, okay.
So what happens after 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days?
So what happens?
So it messes up your credit.
Okay.
Like anything else, like any other type of loan that you have if
Sure,
you default
sure.
on. So it's the same type of thing, but they're just like, get ready because this is what's going to happen. And so I know for me, what I've actively done is I went online on my portal and I downloaded everything that I could, all my payments, all the messages before it gets cleared out through Nelnet, which also too, by the way, was being sued through the Biden administration for predatory practices.
Oh, wow.
But I think that has since halted. But I've downloaded everything that I could online before all the switch happened. So all of my payments, any type of communication I've had with Nelnet, all those different things. Just so I know, like, you can't say, oh, she didn't pay this or you didn't pay that. But again, they're sending out these emails like, this is what happens if you don't. Like almost like a scare tactic.
Right. But you can't, how you can be scared into paying something if you don't have it, right? Like, I mean, it's the reality of what the situation is, unfortunately, and it's going to impact, how many people they say? Like up to 8 million people?
42 million borrowers.
Oh,
currently.
42 million borrowers,
yes.
But 8 million were a part of that SAVE program.
Yes.
So just imagine the impact of that on the economy, right? Like, so if you now have to consider majority of your pay going to student loans or, trying not to default on that loan, then you don't have space or room to do anything else.
And also with the interest rates that are going up too, like they're not locked in. And so people are having a hard time paying on the principal of the loan. Right. Right. Like staying on top of the principal is now the thing. And it's just like people are just, I mean, eggs are $6.
Yeah, right. No.
You know what I mean? I just bought eggs the other day because I like eggs, but like I felt crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you are drowning America.
And it's, so I wasn't a part of the loan forgiveness program. And like you, I have friends who have received it. And even as someone who's paid their loans, I still support the fact of, having your loans forgiven if possible. Especially, those folks who went and worked in nonprofits and did a lot of the work that is needed for our communities to then not have this advantage any longer. And, you see these different tax cuts and a lot of conversations happening for big business and billionaires. But then when it comes to the people, there's a whole different mindset of that. And then you also see how people argue around that as well. Like I said, I paid mine back, but I'm not one of those who's, I paid mine, you need to pay yours. At the end of the day, if there's an opportunity for you to take advantage of, take it, and our economy will be better for it.
Right. And what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing, you're already seeing the decline of people entering into colleges and universities. I mean, it's just a fact. I know, was it Harvard? If you make under a certain amount of money, I can't remember.
Yeah, now they allow it to be free.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know like my alma mater, Colgate, is the same way. Like they're standing on business when it comes to that as well.
Okay.
However, there's some schools that are able to do that with their endowment and things like that.
Right.
There's some schools that just cannot.
Exactly.
So you're going to see the enrollment drop, but the people who can quote unquote afford to go to school will, right? And we already know what's going to happen. The jobs and all the things. It's a class.
It's a class
system that's being created.
Right.
So.
And we definitely see that. I mean, and then colleges are already closing because of enrollment being low.
Yeah.
In a lot of these smaller schools.
The Pell Grants are going away.
Yep.
All the things.
Yeah.
And the Pell Grants help marginalized students get into college.
Exactly.
Or pay for college, not get in, but pay for college. So it's, man.
So, I mean,
I could
from
go
that
on
standpoint,
and on about student loans.
It's just like, now what? And that's the question, because if you make it, I just think about, okay, every specific job has to have a specific minimum, right? Like requirement of you getting that job. We want a master's degree. We want a bachelor's degree. We want this. You also have seen the shift in organizations as well. Even clients that we've worked with who are now going to experience versus, these college degrees. And when you think about the long-term impact of that, we might be seeing that happen even more, right? Because now affordability of college is not going to be accessible to folks at the end of the day, right? So if that's not in reach, then you have to then go to experience because no one can afford to do this any longer.
Right. And I just want to say shout out to Say Yes, Stephanie P. in the Workforce Development Program, because I had an opportunity to work with the young apprentices through that program, and brilliant young minds. And they're getting opportunity to get experience while either potentially getting certification or going to school for a 2-year degree. And so they're getting that at the same time while making a livable wage.
Okay.
Helping families and supporting their families. And so they're getting that experience while also going to school. So, I look forward to seeing that program grow as much as it can. But those programs such as that, it's going to help, the next stage of our country.
And talk about skills, right? Like those type of skills, apprenticeships, on the job type of training and things like that is going to become even more important as we look into the future as well. It always makes me think about that conversation, and I think we talked about this before, but the Niagara movement and these philosophies essentially in terms of how we as a people would navigate. So you had Booker T. Washington, who was very skills based, right?
Yes.
Build the trades, things like that they can't take away from you because you can always make a living like that.
Correct.
You had W.E.B. Du Bois on the other end who talked about the talented 10th and, like academia being the way and, elevating our consciousness to that level. And so it's always interesting to me now when you kind of step back and say, was one right or the other, or would you consider a different
live simultaneously?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we should do a deeper dive into Niagara movement in the future.
Yes.
But succinct, we're gonna keep it moving. And so our deep dive today is coming from USA Today, and it says Chief Justice John Roberts rebukes Trump after president calls for U.S. judges' impeachment. So the growing clash between President Donald Trump and the judiciary took a major turn Tuesday as Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts rebuked Trump's call for the impeachment of a federal judge. For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision, Roberts said in a rare public statement. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. Trump on Tuesday called for the impeachment of a federal judge who tried to stop the Republican administration from deporting hundreds of alleged Venezuelan gang members via the Alien Enemies Act, a 1798 law that was last used during World War II. And so Trump in a social media post referred to Chief U.S. Judge James Boasberg in Washington, D.C., who was appointed by former President Barack Obama as a quote-unquote radical left lunatic of a judge and a troublemaker and an agitator. Unlike himself, Trump argued, he did not win all 7 battleground states in the 2024 White House election en route to an overwhelming mandate that the president said was centered on his promise to fight illegal immigration. I'm just doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached, Trump said in his post on Truth Social. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers, in our country. And so, he's obviously calling for impeachment. It escalated increasing attacks on federal district judges who have sided against his administration on several fronts, including its efforts to cut the federal workforce through Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. Trump officials, including J.D. Vance, the vice president, have accused judges of trying to control the executive branch's power. And so it says that although it's rarely executed, Congress has the authority to impeach federal judges through the same process as other federal officials. The House of Representatives can impeach a judge with a simple majority, but votes from 2/3 of the Senate are required to convict the judge and remove them from office, making a conviction highly unlikely under the Senate's current makeup. And so this is where we're at. I know, on one of the last conversations we talked about J.D. Vance and this unchecked power that he's basically purporting that they should have. But now we're seeing this impact people in real time, real lives. And so they're rounding up folks saying, oh, you're a part of a gang. You saw them round up. It was a student. I'm forgetting the university.
It was in New York.
Was it Columbia?
It was Columbia University.
Columbia University, and they rounded him up because of protests that he was involved in and said that you're supporting, terrorism essentially.
And they expelled other students
other students. Green cards are being revoked because of this. You saw the woman, I think she was a kidney doctor who was a part of, what school was that? Brown University.
Brown, and they're advising their students and their staff not to travel internationally.
Right.
I mean, it's stark warnings coming from these colleges and universities.
And I think she was flying into Lebanon and coming back into Logan Airport. Yeah. They confiscated her phone, looked through it. I think she had deleted some pictures because she went to a Hezbollah funeral of some sort, but it was based on some spirituality she was talking about, and there were thousands of people who attended, but she came back, they went through her phone and said, oh, nope, you got to be out of here, and sent her on a plane packing back to Lebanon, even though she, you know, had the I think she had a green card or something like that to be able to teach in the United States. I
mean, it's when you're looking at just talking about overall checks and balances, right? It's like for the executive branch, it's like checks and balances doesn't even matter. Yeah. Right? It's like, how can, you know, J.D. Vance and Trump are saying, you know, how can the, you know, federal government, or not government, but the federal branch and these judges tell us what to do. And it's like, this is what checks and balances. That's what
the whole purpose
checks and balances. Like, I mean, we know Trump didn't go to law school, but we know Vance did. Yeah. So these are things that, you know, that they're questioning, that's been a part of our Constitution for a while. And also, too, you know, in the article they talked about Elon Musk and Doge efforts and really stripping down the efficiencies or lack thereof in our government. And there's another article out here from NBC News that talks about Elon Musk and Doge efforts to close USAID, likely unconstitutional. Agency must be restored, judge rules. Again, this is where checks and balances come into play, right? And so the federal judge ordered the government to reinstate U.S. Agency for International Development System, saying Doge likely violated the Constitution in multiple ways. A federal judge ordered the government to reinstate the agency on Tuesday, ruling that accelerated shutdown of the agency led by Musk likely violated the U.S. Constitution. So U.S. District Judge Theodore Chong ordered Musk's Department of Government Efficiency to reinstate access to email, payment, security, notification, and other electronic systems for all USAID employees and contractors. He also ordered the department to provide written confirmation of compliance to the court within 7 days. The court will require defendants within 14 days to secure and submit a written agreement among all necessary parties and ensure the USAID will be able to reoccupy its headquarters in its original location. He also ordered Doge and Musk not to take any action regarding USAID without the express authorization of a USAID official with legal authority to do so. The judge also wrote that the limitation was warranted as it appeared Doge and Musk appeared to have been primarily responsible for the rush to shut down USAID. And it also says Doge has taken numerous actions without any apparent advance approval of agency leadership. So it just goes on to talk about this. And it's like, again, you're violating every constitutional right that people have. You're stripping them of their dignity, number one. You're stripping people of their rights as a human. And, you know, when you're reading Project 2025, which I read some parts of it from last year, because I had to go back to say, was this in Project 2025? It is.
It was.
It's in, it is in Project 2025. And so you're stripping away the rights of now this group. Now what's next? Right.
And the crazy thing about that is Paul Dans, the one who architect behind Project 2025, was quoted saying, yes, he's excited about what's happening because it's as if they're following it to a T, right? And that if the Trump administration wanted him back in there, then he'd be happy to come back. But essentially, all the things that are happening was planned. It was planned. I still don't fully understand what the goal is in terms of the long-term goals around why you're dismantling, you know, now you're going to have people be crippled from student loans. I mean, there's conversations around what that goal is, but
Kendra, I'm not saying there's any other. Kendra's theory is that you have these billionaires who are at the top, right? And they are trying to crash and burn our economy, our people, to buy it back low, and that they own everything. I mean, we're seeing things like the stock in Tesla has tanked. Yeah. Everybody knows I worked for Tesla. Right. And I still have Tesla stock. It has tanked. And now you're seeing basically the White House front lawn becoming a Tesla showroom.
Child, when I saw that, I was like the Hatch Act, like all these different things that are just being disregarded. But the interesting piece is, you know, you have Justice John Roberts who was saying, oh my gosh, like this is not right. But y'all also voted to give him presidential immunity. So at the end of the day,
like, what did you think he was going to do? And I think partially part of it is they probably thought about Trump in 2016 and 2020. You know, I mean, this is part of the reason why this podcast came to be, based off the sweeping changes from his presidency the first time. But we were like, oh my gosh, this man is trying to dismantle all this. He's talking about woke. They're talking about critical race theory, like all these things. But it wasn't actual movement.
Yeah.
Right. But now,
it's movement.
It's movement.
It's movement. And
every day,
the moves is being made.
And
at
I think
the end
people
of the day,
didn't think that was going to be Project 25. I know nothing about it, you know. And this was again designed and set up from well before Obama. Yeah. Well before Obama.
Well, I mean, it's a whole plan. It's a whole plan that has an architect and is being followed. And here we are, you know. I think techno-feudalism is another conversation we need to have, just in terms of like the tech space and how these folks are positioning us as a country as well. So more to come on all the things, y'all. We always have deep conversations about everything that's happening, you know, and as people who have done DEI continue to help people navigate through it, there's a lot of conversations that are being had and people, you know, reframing. So I think we should have a conversation about that at some point, just in terms of some of the new frameworks and things that are happening on that end. So more to come.
Yes, I would say frameworks and movement. Like what movements are happening. You know, people are saying how are we going to fight back? You know, if the courts are doing what they're doing now, how are we going to fight back and move forward? So you know, more to come.
All right, so our last segment, of course, is the gem of the day. I'm going to go first. You know, I usually go second, but I'm going to go first. And so my gem of the day is coming from an Instagram influencer, Twa Marie. And the post says, one way that we give away our power is to believe and behave as if those with status, success, or money have more valuable thoughts, ideas, or ways of being than we do. They don't. And it says that success usually means that someone understands how to play the capitalism game really well. Success is also usually linked to hierarchical, fast-paced vertical growth. We also usually value people more if they have more power over people instead of power with people. The power I think that we give away is power from within, the power that is ours, which fuels us to be embodied, present, rooted people who can handle conflict, not abuse, and difference. We've been trained to see status, success, and money as markers for wisdom, care, and correctness. We throw away our critical thinking skills and inner guidance because the socialization that we've received says that we're not right if we're not, quote unquote, making it. But what does making it or success even mean in a world where the way to typically achieve these things is to oppress others while also oppressing ourselves? Just some thoughts, you know, that they were exploring. And I think, you know, one of the things that we keep having conversations around is, you know, how do we fight back? How do we position ourselves? And it's really difficult in a system that was created to oppress a certain, you know, level of people, right? So I think at this point in time, we need to look at our power within and our power together and make sure that we're, you know, keeping that on top of mind as we navigate these challenging times.
Ooh, challenging is an understatement.
Yeah.
So my gem of the day comes from something that I wrote again on LinkedIn. So I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn posts, just writing about just my vulnerability as a leader, what I've learned along the way. And again, like I said, I put out a LinkedIn post in regards to my trip from the Legacy Museum in Montgomery. And one thing I've really been contemplating is about, you know, my legacy as a brim. Like, what does that mean? And again, we'll talk about my time at the Legacy Museum in a future episode. But one thing that I wrote while I was at the museum, and I wrote in my article today, is their resilience is my foundation and their fight is my inheritance. So that's something that just kept coming up when I was walking through the museum and the other parts as well. And just really saying, like, you know, thinking about, I have no other option but to fight back, to advocate, to speak up, because that is something that my ancestors did to get onto the other side.
Absolutely.
And so I have no other option. And so their fight is ultimately my inheritance. And it will be probably my kids' inheritance, right? And you don't want that to be it, but unfortunately that's where we are now. So I have no other option but to, you know, keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, and that's why we have to make sure that we continue to put joy at the forefront of everything that we do. So it's often easy to get wrapped up into the day-to-day. There's craziness that's happening, but I also have seen, and we could also talk about this on a future episode, just the joy that Black folks have also been putting at the forefront in spite of all the stuff that's happening in the back, right?
So all of the line dances and the
dances, the fans,
the concerts, you still have to live your life.
You absolutely do,
because that's what they want. They want to suppress the joy. So.
Yeah. So another episode in the books, y'all.
Yeah,
y'all make sure to follow us, like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yes.
Follow us on LinkedIn as well, because we do have a platform there.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Bye, y'all.